Hello and welcome to a really, really special episode of Profiles in Risk. A short, special episode. Today I have the former host of Profiles in Risk, several time guest, longtime Insurance Nerds author, and co-founder, late in the game co-founder of Insurance Nerds, and big changes happening. I kind of alluded to them in my recent video about the new logo for the podcast and Professor Risk Español, and I kind of alluded to use your name a couple times. So Nick Lamparelli, welcome back on the show, and the triumphant return, and we haven't really announced it, but eagle-eyed viewers might have noticed that as of a couple days ago, your main job title on LinkedIn is now managing partner at Insurance Nerds. And people will notice that mine continues to be my honorific that I've always used of Chief Motivational Officer. So what's going on with Insurance Nerds?
So I'm back. Well, thank you, thank you, thank
Michael
you.
Jordan style back.
Yeah. If I look like I'm squirming, I have a cat underneath me, and it's already bitten me once. So this is good, fitting for an Insurance Nerds
Perfect,
podcast,
perfect.
unedited. So you and I had a conversation. I had been wanting to find a way back into blogging and podcasting, and it was painful not being. I think painful not being part of Insurance Nerds because I always thought, there were opportunities that were available. I think first and foremost, we're insurance professionals. We are truly insurance nerds, and I think that kind of shines first and foremost. So it was always like I missed the writing, I missed the engagement, the community aspect of what it was that we were doing. And so you and I chatted and we talked about me coming back and having a more significant role in trying to execute on some of those things. So,
And
um,
for a little background, like behind the scenes, so Insurance Nerds was created as a platform to help young insurance professionals grow. This was before InsurTech existed, and it was a very carrier-heavy thing because Carly and I were both carrier people. And then you came on board and started the podcast. And at that point, we started doing a lot more about InsurTech. And every couple of years, we would meet, kind of a strategic meeting, and chat about what do we want insurance nerds to be. And you always had this recurring idea of let's do education, right? Let's fill in some of the holes that the traditional providers of insurance education are not addressing for the modern world. And at that time, all three of us were full-time employed within the industry, and nobody had the horsepower to really execute. And of course, my camera, which is fine. Nobody had the horsepower to really execute. And basically, like the beautiful thing is we're going back to what we should have always been, that we just didn't have the firepower. We didn't have. None of us were in the position where we could just do it full time.
yeah. Well, the beginning of the podcast was specifically like the mission of the podcast was to expose insurance professionals to what other insurance professionals were doing, right? Because we didn't have that. So I went through much of my early career looking at captives or reinsurance, and just like, whoa, that looks awesome, that looks sexy, but no avenues, no pathways to understand, like, how do I do that, how do I get there, kind of thing. And so the mission of the podcast early on was to create that exposure. I would say that you have continued that nicely. Like, you are exposing the insurance community to a lot of the new technologies and professions and how they're all interrelated. So I think we've done like a really bang up job of helping the young insurance professional look at their career and think of like what they could potentially do, eliminate options, and I kind of thought of it like, it took me 10 years in insurance to kind of find my footing.
Hmm.
I think a lot of other professionals kind of have the same problem. Can we go from 10 years to 5 years? Can we take it from 10 years to 3 years? Can we help a professional in 3 years really focus on what it is that they're doing? So you and I, we've talked about this for years, and now recently, as an extension of that, I don't think the training that currently exists in insurance is up to task, right? I'm still a fan. I still push people to, you should get a designation, either CPCU or ARM, one of the institute designation. CIC is a really strong designation for some things, but there was a whole bunch of stuff that's like I felt was left off the table that as an insurance professional, as an entrepreneur, I had to figure out on my own. And so back to like, can we, can we take instead of a young professional saying, I think I want to be an underwriter, and having them, instead of 10 years to get their feet underneath them, it takes them 3. I think you and I are thinking even bigger of, well, maybe it's like George Costanza, you know, maybe, maybe you don't want to be a city planner. Maybe you want to be an architect, right? Like maybe that's the big thing you want to go for. Maybe you don't want to be an underwriter. Are you aware or could you build up an aptitude to be a chief underwriter? Are you aware or could you build aptitude to start your own MGA, start your own program? How do you stand up a program, right? How do you connect all of those pieces? So it's, I think what folks will see going into the fall is our attempt, one, to connect to educational providers that already exist. But as we get into the fall and into 2024, it's to create our own educational content, probably leading to our own sort of certification programs. We'll get feedback on that, on what's useful, but there are a handful of topics that I think are kind of out there. I don't think, for example, I don't think the traditional underwriter is getting enough exposure to artificial intelligence and data and analytics and predictive modeling. I can assure you, Tony, in my experience on the cat side, most underwriters are not comfortable with cat. They don't understand it well enough. They don't understand the modeling and the analytics and how to think about cat well enough. And we want to fill in the cracks and bring our own unique view and potentially like tie pieces together so that, again, going back to I think what our mission is, can we take an insurance professional and move them through their career arc faster, get them to where they want to go faster, eliminate mistakes, bad pathways, the road less traveled maybe, eliminate those and get them to where they want to be, where they want to go, faster, in a more lucrative way, so on and so forth.
I think that there's a few things that play into it. The industry pulled away from a lot of its investment in training after the '09 recession. A lot of the big programs kind of died, and a lot of that investment never came back, and a lot of it makes sense because in a world where you spend thousands of dollars training an underwriter, or it takes $1 million to train an underwriter, is what the saying is. But where you invest in training an underwriter, training a claims adjuster, etc., and you keep them forever, you get your money back, right? It's a really easy investment. But in a world where people move around a lot, right, and there's no lifetime employment anymore, it still exists somewhat in insurance compared to other industries, but it's rare and it's declining. The employees should invest in themselves. And the current programs are very much built for the employers to pay for them, and they're priced accordingly, and they're delivered accordingly, right? And I think we have a great chance of building programs that complement that in a way that it makes sense for the employee themselves to invest in themselves, right? And more
Or
modular
the
based.
I mean, frankly, I hope the employer engages us.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm hoping we can find early adopters, around that. I think some of our peers have had a little bit of success as well, working with carriers, for instance, and for sales training courses or sales training workshops, those types of things for their underwriters because that's not taught, right? Sales training is not taught. Relationship management is not taught, and so I hope the employers dig in, but um, we will leverage the use of technology to, um, I'll call it, make it affordable. We're going to shoot for that,
Hmm.
uh, but we do want to make it widely available, and I think the price points that we're going to ultimately going to be able to hit are, if your employer doesn't want to help you, you can probably swing it on your own.
Fantastic. And community. So insurance nerds, I had no idea that the online community of insurance nerds, which I do a really horrible job of marketing, right? I talk about the blog, I talk about the podcast, uh, I talk about chat with Tony. I do a really horrible job of marketing the online community, and yet it is a vibrant community, right? And it's been built on the wrong software, never marketed, and yet it is a vibrant community. So I think as we move into our future, that combination of training that is practical, that is modern, that is uh, modular, that is delivered in the way that today's employees want it delivered, and the future employees want it delivered, combined with the personality of insurance nerds and the very friendly community that we've built, uh, will be just a fantastic resource for insurance professionals now and going forward.
Yeah, so anyone that goes to insnerds.com, which I think a lot of people who listen to this have been on that site. It's a blog, it's a base blog site, right? Like
Because
the
originally that's what we were. Everything else has
right,
been
exactly.
has been bolted on top with no budget and no IT skill. But yours truly.
Everything's been bolted on, and WordPress is phenomenal for that, right? Like you find a template, it's going to be blog based, but we have the ability to add links and other stuff. But we've gotten to a particular point where we have on LinkedIn, 21,500 followers. We have almost 3,500 YouTube subscribers. We have 2,500 Slack subscribers. We have an email list that's,
Seven or eight
about
thousand.
thousands, like,
Yeah.
almost 10,000. So we have all of these disparate channels, and so we're engaging with people. It's funny when I write a blog or whatever, I will go into WordPress and I will see that there's a comment there, and I'm just like, oh, I wasn't notified, right? Like the blog is just not adequate for that kind of engagement. LinkedIn is much more fruitful around that particular engagement, but it's still LinkedIn, right? So we have limited control around that particular engagement. YouTube, the same thing. I will see people comment on YouTube, and the problem with YouTube is who knows who's going to comment on that, right? So you have these disparate channels, and so when you and I conversed, it was like, um, as much as people like Slack's been very useful. I connected two people today. Someone needed help. I knew of a solution. I connected them. They go off and they kind of do that thing. You and I have done that like hundreds of times
Hmm.
the past few years. Slack's wonderful because a lot of companies have Slack as a communication tool, but it's just not fit for purpose. So we have these disparate channels. They're not quite right for
They're
what
not
it is
integrated at all.
what it is that you and I really want, which is that real deep, rich engagement. You know, so much so that, like, on the Slack channel, we'll have folks who are, hey, anyone going to this particular conference, right? And other people will raise their hand, and then they kind of bounce out of Slack. If they're going to connect and meet up, they have to bounce out and figure something else out, like a WhatsApp or whatever. and we want to create a platform where people in the community can remain there. If they go to a conference, they can remain in the chat there and find each other and all of that. So we need a platform, and we're going to roll into and evolve into a platform that will allow what we think will be a richer engagement. That will also be a necessity for as we roll out the educational stuff as well, because we will roll them out in the community. So you can just go in; it'll be like a community college. You go in and you're there, right? So you can talk, you can connect, you can see, what happened at LinkedIn and how the conversation's flowing. You can take your courses, but you can go to conferences and stay within that network and not have to bounce out. It
And
won't
it,
be perfect. We will make mistakes, but it's create having more of a platform to kind of centralize how people engage and make it richer and more valuable
a,
for them.
a truly integrated platform rather than the disparate multiple points that have grown over the years. A platform that's more modern and chosen for the purpose of what we now know insurance nerds is, which we didn't know at the beginning, and also with an experienced insurance leader actually dedicated to it. Because before, I think a lot of people don't realize that this has always been a hobby, right? Like nobody's ever been focused on actually getting this thing right, and it's grown to what it is almost despite us instead of because of our brilliance. And now we have the chance for to actually build it to what it can be.
The most valuable part of insurance nerds is the community, right? And so, and you and I talked about this, like how do we provide more value to the community? How do we do it in the right way to create richer experiences? Frankly, how do we? What's there's a monetization aspect as well because this stuff isn't free, right? So how can we deliver this rich value, provide this in such a way that the community itself feels quite compensated, right? It's a worthly, worthwhile trade-off to get educated, to get training, to get their CE, to meet these folks, listen, to find prospects, to find investors, right? Like we have done all of that. We have found people jobs. We have gotten people into their careers. We have advanced them through their careers. We have found people investors. We have found business partners. We have found clients for people. So there's this ton of activity that's going on around us. We have not centralized it. Centralizing it will require resources to put in, and we have been asked over and over, like, how can we support insurance nerds? And we didn't have a good mechanism to do that. It was always like, Patreon or, buy a book. So we want to find a richer way to that we can keep doing all of those things, do it at a bigger and more productive and effective scale, and have the resources that are coming in to keep scaling it, keep providing it, keep uh, keep creating additional value year over year over year for the community. At the end of the day, the community drives this thing. But if you look at other really successful communities, we have the nerds that are there and the folks that really enjoy what it is they're getting from the community, and that's got to be priority number one is do not disrupt the community, do not break up the camaraderie. So everything we're going to do is going to have we have to be tasteful in how we do it. It has to create value for them to allow us to do what it is we're trying to do, which is, again, shorten the arc. Take an insurance professional and get them to where they want to go in their career, in a carrier, in an agency, in their own company, get them there faster. And we have the resources to do that, whether that's educational stuff so they can advance, whether that's job placement and getting them to the next step in their career, or whether that's a network to an investor to fund and invest in. their startup or their next round or whatever. We've been very successful in being able to do that. Now it's formalizing this and doing it at scale.
I will leave you with this thought. Recently, as you know, I'm a gamer. Recently, Facebook gave me an ad for a class action lawsuit against Steam. Steam is the primary online distribution for video games. So I happened to notice that it had thousands of comments that the ad did, and I click on the comments, and it turns out the comments are basically a whole bunch of gamers like me telling this law firm, right? Because the ads from this law firm get lost. Like we've gotten so much value from Steam and Steam sales over the years, and so much entertainment from everything we've bought on the platform, that even if there is even if we could each get even if we could each get a few bucks back by letting you represent us, we love the platform, right? And that is what I visualize long term for insurance nerds. Hopefully not a class action lawsuit, but just a community that gets so much value from what we give them, that they're active evangelizers for it, and they are already. We make it hard for them to be.
We make it hard for them to be evangelists for us. They're basically opening their wallet and saying, "How can we help support you so you can continue to do the work?" And we've made it hard for them to give us money,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And
So it's to turn that around, and it's to expand the community. And what we have not brought up, and what people probably have seen, is you probably have seen Spanish content, right? Like there's just no dedicated site that is doing Spanish content for insurance, and whether it's Latin America or the vast population in the United States that's primarily Spanish speaking, it seems like they're a very underserved audience. And so we want to expand the audience and give them the opportunity to help one another, right? Like so in a true community, this isn't just the leaders of insurance nerds doing all the work for this. Tony, we have seen this. We have seen folks kind of huddle off on their own in Slack or whatever. They just kind of go off and they kind of do their own thing. And you and I have not had nothing to do with it. It's more of that. It's the community helping the community, professional helping professional, linking people, networking them, is ultimately our mission. It's to move that arc, move people from point A to point B faster.
fantastic. So we'll leave it there. So massive changes coming over the next year and plus. Uh, Thank you so much for coming back on the show for that. I don't know, 216th time if we count all of the guest appearances. Uh, I am dying to see where you take this.
Yeah. I'm not dying because I need to be alive, but it's gonna be awesome. Just being back, like it has completely lifted my spirits and got me really excited to engage with the universe. And so far, the people that have sort of sniffed out that I'm back are they're pretty excited as well because they can hear the vision that you and I are talking about, and they're just like, yes, finally, you guys are getting it.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, see ya.
Perfect. Okay, it's no longer